Silence. Guys, let's talk today about cultivating silence in your life. And I think it has to be cultivated, otherwise, you won't get it because the world's full of noise, chaos, every a distraction. It's like a giant advertisement everywhere you look. So here's how I began. Now, we're all raised up in this culture where the TV is always on, there's always a distraction, there's always noise, there's always music. You feel like you must always have some sort of noise in the background, whether it's music or watching something or listening to something. Like, you have to have something going on. And I think that comes from a a disconnect with your spirit, right? Your soul. All right? And here's what I mean by this, guys. If you are disconnected from your soul, from your spirits, like that kind of that internal little voice that you have going on, guys, um, and it's chaotic in there, you want to do whatever you can to drown that out. And the easiest way to drown that out is by doing something else, like doing an activity, listening to something, doing the activity and listening to something, using alcohol, using drugs, using, I can't say the word because YouTube will cause trouble, but watching impure moving pictures on the internet. There's something always to you're kind of always trying to find a distraction, because if you don't have noise in your life, your soul is so jacked up and full of demons that it'll plague you, right? So you must always have noise. And I noticed that with myself. And here's where I first noticed it. And it took me a long time to get real comfortable in silence. And I'll tell you, I was in a probably an extreme case. So I mean, growing up, I fell asleep listening to music. I put music on. I fell asleep listening to something. Um, there was always some sort of noise in my house, around me, all the time. Radio on, whatever it might be. Always some sort of noise. And and I lived my life like that. There was always an opportunity to put on music, to do something. I couldn't even go for a walk without listening to something. And I wanted to make this video because I just sat outside in silence without my phone. And I was just sitting there, and I saw somebody walk by, earphones in, looking down, just like glued into the device. Beautiful sunny day, right? And that was me. That was me. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't go for a run. Couldn't do anything. So here's how it first started for me. Is I I started swimming like over a decade ago, and wow, that was an experience. That was my kind of my first toe dip in with silence. So I just began swimming. And when you're in the water and you're just breathing and doing the strokes and counting everything out, I mean, the demons pop up like mad because your soul's all jacked up. So you have a lot of stuff to deal with in that silence of just water rushing, and listening to your own breath and each stroke, and kind of counting each stroke. You have a lot to wrestle with. The funny thing is, guys, is the other way I started wrestling with it was going to daily mass. So, very weird situation, right? So, right, Catholic, cradle Catholic. I don't go to church for a long time. Then I start to get back into it. I'm going to like the Novus Ordo Mass, which is it's full of distraction. Like there's never silence in it, which is terrible. And anyway, but what I do is I end up going to daily mass. And after going to daily mass for a while, I just start sitting in the church afterwards, just in complete silence. It's just me. I'm alone. They locked the doors behind me because it's in the city. So it's you can't just leave the doors open all the time. Otherwise, things would get lost, if you know what I mean. So I just started sitting there in silence. And between the swimming and then the sitting there in silence, I started to cultivate silence within my life. And it's like almost like a meditative silence. You get to face a lot of those demons that you had and conquer them and get rid of them. And you have to face them one by one. The other crazy thing, guys, I'll tell you this, is it was so extreme because of the way I was living my life was so disordered, I couldn't even fall asleep. So I'd actually find something to listen to and put headphones in just to fall asleep, just so I didn't have to think about something else, just so I could listen to somebody else basically talking or thinking so I didn't have to think because I couldn't have the silence. But those two things helped me a lot. So just sitting in that quiet church. And I would just do that for a half hour Monday through Friday. That was my lunch break. Take my lunch there. Go to daily mass. It takes like whatever, man, like 18 minutes. It's super short. And then the rest of the lunch break, I would sit there in silence. And then right before that I was swimming, and that forces you to be silent. And then, slowly but surely, I started cultivating more and more silence in my life. Instead of, making dinner and putting something on, I would just do it completely in silence. Instead of going to bed listening to something, I would just do it in silence. What helped too is that silence in the evening. I would just pray the rosary in bed. I just lay there and pray the rosary. So at least it wasn't, you could face those demons kind of protected, so to speak. And you had some sort of protection, some sort of, even like minimal distraction. But you're still not listening to something outside. You're just repeating methodically prayers. And that was a big help. Then the next big change was this. So after going to the Novus Ordo for a long time, I ended up accidentally, and by the grace of God, attending a jazz mass at like 5 o'clock on a Sunday. I was like, man, I was like, got to go to mass, whatever, So I go and there's a jazz band. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I think to myself, there's got to be something more here, right? So I don't even know what, tradition is or anything about that. So I just Google search and I'm like, what's a like more traditional Catholic mass? And church near me pops up. It's Saint John Cantius, and like, oh, it's like Latin mass business. So I head to that, and it's awkward for me the first time, but we'll make a different video about that. But I get there and it's full of silence. There's great swaths of it where it's silent and there's time to pray. The other terrific thing about it is the uh, the chanting and the music. It's all going to be in Latin. You don't know the words. You have no words to focus on. You're just listening to like the like the music of it, the beauty of it, and in the silence of that beauty, you're not thinking about the words. And I think that's a big deal. And there's big chunks of time within the mass that it's silent and you're just on your knees and you're praying and it's silent other than some babies crying and the creaking of wood and your senses are almost like heightened. Like you could smell the incense, you could hear the creaking of the wood. You're more in the presence. You're more in silence, but still, in the world. If that makes sense to you. Um, so my journey, that's a little bit of what I did to start cultivating silence in my life. And I did it, it was quite accidental. But the great benefit that I noticed was when you have silence in your life, you get very, very comfortable with who you are. You get comfortable with um, your masculinity, your thoughts, how you operate as a man, how you govern yourself as a man. You get to also seek out virtue, and you get to make war on your vices. So I suggest to you guys that you start slowly cultivating silence, because I truly believe if you don't do it slowly, you're gonna drive yourself nuts. You will go nuts. I started slowly, and it took a long time to quote unquote unplug from the matrix, unplug from the noise, unplug from the chaos, and plug into God, my soul, cultivating silence. But once you do it, you can never go back. And then when you're exposed to pure nonstop noise, it's like almost like a bombardment on you. So in our house, I mean, we don't watch TV. I don't even have regular TV. Um, I mean, there's a lot of silence. I told you guys numerous times. Typically I don't turn my phone on until 7:30 a.m. I try to shut it off between 7:30 and 8 p.m. Then I don't even store it in the house. I put it in the garage so I have no access. I allow tons of time for silence during the day. And I prefer silence at this juncture in time. And you guys slowly start building that up so that way you can face those demons that you have, make peace with them, not make peace with demons, you know what I mean? But face them and start to cultivate silence. And you'll be more masculine by the time it's over as well. You'll know who you are, what you stand for, and that goes with great reading too. And I'll make another video about great reading. But I suggest two things to start reading that'll help during that time of silence is read the Bible. Just go pick a copy of the Duad Reams Bible up. You could buy it on Amazon. I think it's like $49 or $44. Or you could buy it on Tan Books. And also read the Catechism of the Council of Trent. And do that in silence. That's it, guys. Subscribe, share, whatever.